I'm
Stay
ready.
on. Stay on and I will take a screenshot.
Hi, everyone. I see everyone's starting to load in. Well, we're just, as everyone's loading in, we were chit-chatting, and we're just going to continue to do so. And Josh is making sure his mom got on, so hopefully that's
down to the
happening.
wire. We're down to the wire here.
Okay, Isadora's cat made an appearance already, so
She will again.
we were having good memories about players.
We'll be safe as long as my dogs don't decide to jump in. Isadora, I'm jealous that you have a cat, because a cat is beautiful and silent. I have 2 yappy dogs, so hopefully they'll behave for the next hour. But I'm so excited about us getting to talk like this. This is great. And Isadora, I feel like I know you through your mom, the amazing Ellen, Dr. Ellen Fishman Johnson, who is just such a powerhouse at SCH. And over the years, I've heard her talking about all your great, experiences and jobs. And then, of course, Josh, my gosh, for us to be together with you and you coming off, what is it? I mean, that's like a triple crown. It's like the Oscars, the Grammys, Sundance. So this is just really, really exciting. And I just saw Dr. Drugan. He's on the call with us tonight, the Zoom. So that's great. But this is just really exciting.
Cool. Yeah, it's really great for me to be here and talk to the SCHA community. Obviously, still very tied into it all.
Yeah, you've got nieces and nephews. I mean, nieces here, and
could be grandchildren before we know it. We'll see.
I already have some breaking news to tell.
No, not my grandchildren.
Renee is here to report.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, that was in a past life, but old habits die hard. So.
And Izzy, Martha Kroll said hi to you.
Hi, Martha. Yes. I mean, they're so. Martha, you were my teacher for so long. It's so good to, have familiar names in the chat and in the watching right now.
Yeah, it's very wonderful. Well, Katie, I think you want to wait, just give it maybe 1 minute and then start at 7:05?
We'll give 1 minute, absolutely. And Clark Groom says hi to Josh. Look,
yes.
I love seeing all the alum names coming through and all of the questions that people pre-submitted. They were so thoughtful and clearly.
He sent me a very
Josh,
nice email.
full disclosure, Clark said, can I if I say hi to Josh, will he see it? I said, we will say it out loud. We can see it in the chat. We'll tell Josh. So Clark, we did it.
Hello, Clark. Thank you for your email, Clark. He sent me a very nice email, actually.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Melissa, do you want to get started?
I'm ready if you are. Okay, I'm gonna get my little script here. Hold on just a moment. Okay, so welcome everyone. Good evening. I am Melissa Brown, Director of Alumni Relations, and I would like to welcome you all to another fabulous SCHConnex event this evening, celebrating the arts. Here at SCH, we are excited and proud of our rich history in the arts. And so we hope that this evening, you will learn a little bit more about what our 2 alumni are doing in the arts. This evening, we have 3 members of our community. We have Josh Pearson from the CHA class of 1982. Josh, who is the film editor of the Academy and Grammy Award-winning documentary Summer of Soul. If you have not seen it yet, please try to see that soon. It is a wonderful documentary. And Isadora Johnson, who is from the Springside class of 2011. And Isadora is working in film acquisitions for HBO and HBO Max. And then our moderator tonight will be Renee Chenault Fatah, who is a parent, a former trustee, and former anchor for NBC News 10 for over 20 years. So we are in good hands. I am looking forward to this discussion. I am going to show, before I do that, I'm going to show a very brief clip of Summer of Soul, and then we will start our conversation. But then also just want to let everyone know too that you can type any questions that you have into the chat. And Renee, Katie Freeland, who is our SCHConnex coordinator, also working in admissions, who also I want to give a big shout out to for coordinating all of this and getting all of them together. Katie and Renee will monitor those questions, and then we'll do those during the presentation. So I'm going to show a quick clip, and then Renee, I will turn it over to you. I'm going to share, just bear with me. You all know I'm going to share my screen. And, oops. Moment. And can everyone see that? I know it's blank right now, but okay.
Yep.
It's good.
Melissa, I can't hear it. Can other people hear it?
No, I don't think there's sound.
Melissa, can you unmute?
Oh, right, she's muted.
But we hear you, Josh.
Here, I can do all the voices.
Right. You probably can't as much work
You
as
could
you
sing
did on
last
this.
night.
Wow. Well, this is just a great tease then for people, if you
Yeah.
haven't seen this film, to see it.
Yeah, the
Trust
footage
us, it's not a
flows.
silent movie.
It looks good too.
It looks beautiful.
Pretty pictures.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine the process of looking at all these images for the first time, Josh.
Can you imagine? I mean, this movie, this film really is a revelation, Josh. I've watched it several times, and every time I watch it, I see something different. Between the incredible music, the interviews, I have so been looking forward to us talking about this film. And like I said, this is a tease for people.
Yeah,
Trust
yeah.
us, as wonderful as the pictures are, the sound is even better.
Well done.
All right. Well, after working 25 years in TV, I know something about technical difficulties and glitches.
Yep.
It goes with the territory. And we certainly are going to jump into this film. But because we have the SCH community with us tonight and the CHA community and Josh and Isadora, it's clear that you've got a lot of family and friends and fellow alums who've tuned in. Before we jump into this film, I think it would be really great to hear from both of you about your experiences, your time, Josh, for you and CHA, and then Isadora as SCH, and especially sort of your involvement in the arts and media and just the sort of the creative environment out of which you came, and looking at what you've accomplished to this very day. Why don't you start it off, Josh?
Sure. So yeah, I graduated in '82, and I must say that the arts, and particularly Barbara Crawford's basement art room, was kind of a savior for me at CHA. CHA was obviously a very warm and nurturing environment, and I loved being there. I felt very safe there, but I did pretty badly academically. I especially in high school, I just started to slack way off. Thank God I had the art room, and also thank God I had the players. I got involved in the players my sophomore year, I think. And, I started out backstage and building sets and stage manager. And then I actually went out and did a couple of plays on stage, and it was just so fantastic. And there was such a, I love the theater. And I kind of want to do it again someday, because there's nothing like that team cohesion. I did play sports as well, but there's something about the theater cohesion and that incredible sense of the esprit de corps that you get when you're, doing it. And then of course you're getting the adulation and the love of the audience. And there's, nothing quite like that either. So both those things were really formative for me at CHA.
I think that's so important that you share that, because I think it resonates probably with, maybe students who are listening who maybe, the academics, it wasn't, the best experience, but I think the beauty of CHA and SHA is that, or SCH, is that there's something there for everyone. And I think it's interesting that both you and Isadora talked about your experiences with players. Yeah. Isadora, talk about your experience at SCH.
Yeah, no, Players was probably one of the most formidable parts of my SCH experience. I started off in freshman year. I think I was in High School Musical, and I think.
What part did you play? What part did you play?
I was Taylor McKessie. Yes, so I was the best friend, okay. And what it did more than anything was help my confidence, which I think, probably similarly to Josh, I was struggling, especially with my math grades, with my science grades. Yeah. And I found through Players like a community. I found, I had friends with similar interests, and I had the feeling of being on stage, which is, for some of us, one of the best feelings in the world. And it was something that I used to work at New York Film Festival, and it was just, when I was working there, I was thinking like putting on a festival, the only kind of similarity I could point to was at Players and putting on a production. Like it was the best feeling. And it was a huge part of my life.
Well, Josh, it sounded like you wanted to add something to that.
No, I was just agreeing, it's all about that, absolutely.
Right. Wow. Well, certainly, maybe having some challenges with the academics didn't hurt either one of you when you're looking at what you both have accomplished. So. Yeah. There's a message there.
I'm sorry to the parents who I'm I'm not trying to encourage any.
No, but we're keeping it real. And I think it's also just really important. School is not about solely the grades, and that's something that gets lost a lot of times. And so, well, as I said, the movie is just, to me, a revelation. I can't say enough wonderful things about Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Cannot Be Televised, which I guess is an homage to Gil Scott-Heron. But right. Josh, you've been quoted as saying that this was the perfect film at the perfect time. Could you maybe share a little bit about, what you meant in saying that, and what the experience was like in being involved in Summer of Soul?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the film came into the production company where I work, Radical Media, several months before lockdown. So, midway through 2019. And, at the time, it seemed like just, wow, this is going to be a great concert film, all these incredible artists. And yes, we're going to touch on the troubles of the 60s, the late 60s, and the struggles of the Black community to achieve liberation. But there was not quite as much emphasis on that stuff until we started in the fall of 2019. And then as 2020 unfolded, and we all went back to our basements, and then the George Floyd protests began that summer as well. And it was election year. I mean, oh my God, what a headache. I mean, what a terrible, terrible year.
Yes.
And so this film really was, it was just so joyous. First of all, the music is so joyous, and the crowd was so joyous, and the audience, the footage of the audience, and then, they'd gotten a bunch of the interviews with some of the attendees, as we call them. and before lockdown, and pretty much right away, the theme began to emerge of this sort of lost memory and erased history, and I just fell in love with that theme. And as that carried into the terrible summer of 2020, it just became more amplified. And as Questlove said, over and over again, I want this film to be about Black joy, not so much about Black pain. There's a lot of stuff out there about Black pain. There's been a lot of documentaries and films about Black pain. We need to show the joy. We need to bring the joy here. And so we had a little bit of Black pain in there, but
but there was a whole lot of joy, and that's what I
Yeah.
what in talking to friends and family about this is that it's this time capsule, and you're seeing families, and you're seeing young, the little boy with the sombrero and the grandmother out there moving to the music, and there's scenes and their images that are not shown often enough about communities of color, and bringing in the Latino community and that music, in addition to soul and gospel, it's so powerful, so powerful. Isadora, one of the themes for tonight's conversation is about using music and film as community building. And, as we've been saying, Summer of Soul is masterful in terms of, yes, we were going through a period with George Floyd, but Questlove very much wanted to focus on Black joy. What is sort of the role of films? And Isadora, you're in acquisitions at HBO, but what role can films do in community building, in portraying communities other than in one light or one way?
I think it's necessary for just the reasons why we just said. I mean, for a Black woman watching that film, if you don't usually have those images in front of you of your people experiencing joy during a certain time period, you internalize that. I mean, that is something that, I don't even know if we can, measure how much that's internalized. I think we have to keep finding archival footage, or like putting money into archival work, in order to, I guess, atone for what has been a lot of whitewashing of history. And to give communities, I don't know, an opportunity to see themselves in our own light or in our own perspective, as opposed to like what you're saying, like the trauma, the pain that I think a lot of marginalized communities are usually defined by, and that is a constant conversation with acquiring film. It's our responsibility to make sure that these films have an audience or have a platform, because these films can be made and no one can see them,
How well said. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to go back eventually to what you're saying about acquisitions and what your role is and how, films come to you, how you find films. But just going back to Summer of Soul, and I'm not sure people are aware, and Josh, maybe you can sort of share this a little bit, but this footage was just sort of lost. I mean, it was in a basement for some 50 years. And I guess it was Hal Tuchin who shot it, who was trying to get an audience, and just, this truly was lost footage. And I'm curious as to sort of, if you could share the creative process. How do you take something like that that's already shot and you've got to create this incredible story? How do you do that?
Well, it was interesting. It was interesting in a variety of ways. In a very basic kind of aesthetic way, yes, we have all this great footage of this concert, But unlike Woodstock, there was nobody roaming around the crowd with cameras. We didn't have inside access. We kind of realized we couldn't make it feel super immersive like Woodstock. I don't know if you've seen it. I actually have only seen kind of chunks of it, but you know, it kind of gives you this feeling that you're there.
You're there, exactly.
And we didn't have that, which also speaks to the issue of Black erasure of history, because the only news coverage we found of the festival was that one clip where Walter Cronkite throws to the newscaster standing in the middle of the crowd on the day of the moon landing. That was the only news coverage we found. And I've worked on other docs where there's, you know there's tons of archival of newscasters standing in the field at Woodstock. So it's a weird contrast there, but we knew we couldn't have it feel immersive. So we knew we wanted to bring in outside elements and tell that other political story of what was going on in '69. The other interesting thing about the footage is it was not a very overtly political concert, other than Gospel Day, when Jesse Jackson came out and does this incredible speech. There weren't people with signs, down with the war, it didn't have a visually political aesthetic to it. And we wanted to bring that from using outside elements. So that's when you get into all the news archival from the period. And we actually, our archival researcher, Lizzie McGlynn, found this incredible public television show called Black Journal, which was basically like a Black 60 Minutes that was sort of hosted by these two guys. I can't remember their names. One of them was also a filmmaker, but that was just fascinating. I mean, it was amazing to see these hour-long shows that was, the world from a Black perspective, which obviously was new to me. So I just plunged into it, and we used a lot of Black.
I think it was new to a lot.
I know.
I had never seen that before. I'd never seen it.
You could do a documentary just about Black Journal. It's a great show. It's so cool. Yes. But anyway, that was what was cool, was finding these unseen news archival. Not, it wasn't the usual cast of characters. There's a little Walter Cronkite, a little Harry Reasoner, but those guys show up in every documentary. So we were like, how do we get away from that? So then it became, then you gather all that stuff. And frankly, the concert's the easy part. The music's great, the footage is great. We tighten the songs up a little bit, make them a little bit flashier. But the tricky part, of course, was weaving in the political storytelling, through the music. And, that was the tricky part and the fun part, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask, because Questlove is such a Philly icon. And I know, in addition to a colleague, he's a friend. What was that collaborative work process like with him?
It was cool. He is a busy person. He would, before lockdown, he would come in once or twice a week. He was very upfront about the fact, like, hey, this is my first film. I've never made a documentary before. He hired his a longtime friend of his, friend of 20 years, the producer Joseph Patel, became sort of his right-hand man, and a little bit kind of like the Questlove translator, because Questlove can tend to begin speaking in all kinds of fractal rabbit holes about music, because he's got this incredible non-linear mind. So he would come in a couple times a week. We would talk about general ideas. He had very strong ideas about how he wanted the film to begin, how he wanted it to end. He wanted there to be a section that was what he called the primal scream section, which occurs during that Sonny Chirac solo that's like 3/4 of the way through the film.
Yes.
And so, but then he would have to go because he's got to be, he's got a job, he's got his day job. So he'd have to leave So, you know, he definitely would come in and we would talk about ideas, but he wasn't there all the time. And that's kind of the idea. That's how it works with every director of documentaries, frankly. Everyone that I've worked on anyway, is that the director often, they'll get another gig by the time you're editing the footage from the previous gig. So they'll be off shooting their next thing. So, you know, it becomes a good thing to have an independent editor like myself, where I'm very confident about working alone. I don't need somebody sitting behind me telling me what to do, because, you know, I've been doing it a long time now, and you know, I'm a good listener. I get it when someone explains an idea to me. I'm like, I can do that for you, which is sort of your job as an editor. You know, you're like, someone once said it's like being a bartender. Like, how do you want that? How do you want Stevie Wonder? You want him like this? You want him like this?
But you have to have a shared vision, and you have to know sort of, you know, you're on the same page while you're also being autonomous and independent. Yeah.
But then of course lockdown happened, and so then I was really independent.
Right.
Literally in my basement.
Right.
And then it became, you know, Zoom's not a very good medium for screening stuff, for showing video clips to people, as we just saw. And so we hadn't worked out the technology yet. So basically I would cut stuff and post it, and then Joseph and Questlove would react essentially and give me notes. You know, and you know, editing is also a game of taking notes. It's, you know, it's a very independent, kind of isolated job until it's not. And that's when you're on a Zoom call with 20 people and you're getting 30 pages of notes. So anyway, that's kind of how the collaborative process worked.
Thank you. Isadora, I want to go back to what you're saying, because I thought it was so powerful and it's so important. And I think, you know, your role in what you do and bringing these stories to the screen, if there's maybe a young person who's watching and would like to do what you do, what advice do you have? How did you get to where you are at such a young age? And I know some of the other jobs you've had, and they've also been incredible. So sort of share your path, because it's pretty impressive, and again, powerful given what you had talked about in terms of the responsibility for telling people's stories.
Yeah, so you know, I finished college. I went to Kenyon College, which is like a liberal arts school.
Great school.
Yes, and I went right into book publishing, actually, but I knew I wanted to be in film. I knew, like, I just had no connection into film whatsoever. But I finally got my first job in film after a few years at New York Film Festival. And that's really where I got my film education. I think that is my biggest piece of advice for any young person who's interested in acquisitions, or really any part of film. Just watch. I think, like, it changed my, you know, intellectual, you know, it helped with my, like, personal life, helped with my intellectual life, it helped with my identity, you know, just really taking advantage of the city. I was in New York at the time, but it's true in Philly too. In Philly, you have Black Star Film Festival, which is, in my opinion, one of the best film festivals programming wise. You know, there's several art house theaters in Philly, and really starting to become, for me at least, just immersing myself in something that I always knew I loved, but as I became exposed to more and more films, I felt almost frustrated by how, to me, it felt like how long it took for me to be exposed to these films. I'm talking about films by Black women, by you know, women of color, by women in general. And I really just felt like I had to be in a position in which I could help program films for a wider audience that I felt like I missed out on as a young person of color growing up. And for the very reason, like what we were just talking about with Summer of Soul, just to have that feel, to have that, those images of, you know, the people that came before you in a positive light, it changes your life.
Very much
And that's, yeah, I mean, that's really why I decided to go into this field. And I think also, and Josh, I'm curious what you think about this too. I think there's so many positions you can be in the film world that I just didn't understand when I was younger. When I was in high school, you know, I thought maybe it was kind of like director, screenwriter, and like maybe that's kind of it. Of course, that's not true. And there's more, just explore, you know, the different positions in this industry.
Yeah.
Josh, could you maybe, talk a little bit?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of ways into the industry, and actually, you know, oftentimes, most of the time, I'm actually not really doing stuff in a vacuum. I have a ton of help. So, you know, I have infrastructure, we have, you know, the tech team who maintains the computers. And then, you know, when you get into the storytelling aspect, you know, I'm mostly working with producers and story producers in addition to directors. You know, as I said, directors are often busy. They're off shooting the next thing, or, you know, playing drums on the Jimmy Fallon show. But, you know, there's often, you know, story producers are invaluable. That's a role where, you know, essentially, to get into the nuts and bolts of it, you know, interviews all get transcribed now. And, you know, if we're doing a job that needs to be turned around fast, like Spring Awakening for HBO, I edited that in 10 weeks. But partially it's because the story editor, Katie Dunn, had, you know, she and the director had mapped it all out. You know, in the old days, we'd use colored note cards, you pin it to the board. Now it's digital. And then, you know, she's going through transcripts and basically what we call paper cutting. So she's building, you know, essentially a text version of the film, kind of with wider options for sound bites, you know, and then I'll read through that. So in a funny way, a lot of it's become very text oriented for me. So yeah, there's so many roles. And then of course, on the production side, I mean, there's producers and APs, and, you know, they need big teams to go. Even just shooting a solitary interview, the camera crew would come into Radical Media and, you know, there's like 10 people there easily every time. So there's so much you can do in that industry. It's really, there's a lot. And it seems like people like storytelling. So I don't think the industry's going anywhere anytime soon.
I don't think so. And you know, you talked about there's a lot of different roles, and I'm glad you brought that up, Isadora. But looking at your body of work, Josh, it seems like music, there's a theme. I mean, I think of some of the documentaries that you've done, you know, Under the Influence with Keith Richard, you know, whatever happened to, you know, the Nina Simone documentary. Talk a little bit about how music, I mean, there's a real theme with you, it seems.
There is. I mean, I have an unusual story, and I just want to go back to, you know, starting off with Barbara Crawford and the players at CHA. I also had incredibly supportive parents who, you know, granted, were not super pleased that I wasn't doing well academically, but also totally supported my artistic endeavors. And then when it time to go to college, I got into Rhode Island School of Design, went to RISD, and honestly, I thought I was going to be a visual artist. You know, I draw and I paint, and first I was in the illustration department and then the painting department, but my roommate was in the film video department. So he actually kind of got me into editing, but purely through art. So I started editing, doing very weird performance art and art installation stuff that was not storytelling at all. I probably didn't know what a documentary was back then. So, you know, it's an interesting thing. You don't know where you're going to end up, and the path is wide open. But so in the process of learning to edit, I did also learn how to make music with sampler, sampling keyboard. So, you know, it was the early 90s. I stayed in Providence. We had this little art collective, and a friend of ours taught me how to make basic electronic music. And it was sort of the early days of hip hop, and we were hugely inspired by early hip hop, Public Enemy and Boogie Down Productions and all that. And so that's where I learned how to make music. I then made music as part of this weird band I was in called Emergency Broadcast Network. We were signed to TVT Records in the 90s. That was a whole other life.
Wow.
So I did then, after that, I did make, you know, weaving music into the filmmaking kind of a specialty of mine. So that's where the music came from. I don't know anything about actual music. I can't read music, but you know, and there's so many tools to do that now, obviously. I mean, you know, on your laptop, everybody's got GarageBand. It comes preloaded. And, you know, it was just great to be able to explore all that stuff and then continue to roll it into these different films that I get involved with.
Wow, what an incredible path. My gosh.
Yeah,
You know, I could,
pretty windy.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to just keep asking questions, but we've got some really good questions that, you know, the audience has submitted. So I want to, you know, give folks a chance to talk to both of you. I love this one from Andrew Ross. What was the best segment that got left out of Summer of Soul?
Well, there was a scene that we never even got to edit, but we had the sound bites, and we're just like, we can't fit this in, which was this wonderful story that one of the attendees told about how she actually wanted to go to Woodstock, because Woodstock did happen one of the same weekends. They overlapped. So Woodstock was happening upstate and Harlem Cultural Festival's happening in Harlem. This one woman wanted to go to Woodstock really badly, but her friends were like, we can't fit you in our car. And she was very disappointed. But then when she got home, so instead she went to the Harlem Cultural Festival, had a great time. But when she got home, she and her mom turned on the TV and they were watching news coverage of Woodstock. And there's all these dirty hippies wandering around half naked, and people are covered in mud. And she said, like, I actually was so glad I didn't go to Woodstock. Like, I didn't want to have anything to do with that scene. And that was very funny. That was probably one. It would have been nice to do a direct contrast between Harlem Cultural Festival and Woodstock, but just didn't make it in.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess out of 40 hours of footage, you know, there were probably so many things that, you know, could have made it in. Vince Norpel, class of 87, and this could go actually to both of you. When did you know that work in video and film was your passion? I tell you, Isadora, why don't you start us off on that?
Was there a particular film that you saw where you were like, oh my God?
Yeah, no, of course. This is going to be a really there is a film called Jean Dielman, and it's directed by Chantal Ackerman, and it's a 4-hour film, and or 3 hours, maybe 3 hours, 3.5 hours, and I went to go see it. It was one of the first films I had ever seen directed by a woman. I'm not joking.
Wow.
My education from that point beforehand was quite limited. And I saw that movie. I walked out, I walked around Central Park, and I totally felt changed as a person.
Wow.
And I knew this is what I wanted to do. Yeah, I think
Wow,
it
cool.
really was seeing something that I just felt was so, I just had the most visceral response to it, and I was like, this is, I want to be part of this.
Wow. Well, that is the transformative nature, I think, of film, of art, of music.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Josh, you.
I mean, again, it was sort of a gradual process where, like I said, my roommate was dabbling in film video, and he was starting to do very crude video loops, and really kind of first seeing video art was very eye-opening for me because I've never been exposed to it before. And seeing just some very, very weird stuff was very inspiring and made me want to make weird stuff. And so that's what we proceeded to do. And again, there's just that, yeah, there's kind of like nothing that matches the moving picture, whether it's documentary or scripted film, because it's storytelling, it's bringing you into a different world. You know, I mean, obviously Summer of Soul is a very different world from the one I grew up in. And weirdly, you know, I started to feel nostalgic for a Harlem that I'd never even visited. You know, I was like, why is this footage making me feel nostalgic? It's so weird. But yeah, so seeing, you know, just being pulled into these different worlds that you never imagined you'd visit and didn't know existed was really inspiring. And, you know, it's about curiosity too.
Yeah. I am so glad you said that, because as I'm listening to you talking about being brought into a world that you had never been exposed to, for me, it was taking me back to a time. I mean, I, you know, wasn't in Harlem, but hearing the person referred to Mayor John Lindsay as a blue-eyed soul brother. I remember my dad and my uncles talking about, you know, white guys that were cool as blue-eyed soul brothers. And I haven't heard that in 50 years.
Yeah,
So it was that sort of time capsule, you know, and the clothing and, you know, the hairstyles. You were seeing afros and just, you know, so yeah, film is just unlike, I think, any other communicator or way to connect people and, you know, connect to memories. So yeah, absolutely. You know, that question was from Vince, but Vince had another question that I want to ask. He wanted to know that, assuming that you spent time, Josh, with Keith Richards when making Under the Influence, could you share a story or two or give some insights into this cultural icon as well as medical marvel? And that's for sure. What's the secret?
He was not involved in the making of the film. I worked with a director, Morgan Neville, who's a great film director, who actually directed 20 Feet from Stardom, which is a fantastic doc about the backup singers for all these famous people, which won an Oscar several years ago. Keith, you know, I didn't meet him until the very end, when he did come in for a private screening in a screening room, you know, where you book the whole screening room, but it's just Keith and his wife, who is, what's her name again? The model. I forget her name. Anyway, they came and, you know, we were sitting several rows back and, you know, of course you're nervous. Is he gonna like, he hadn't seen anything yet. Is he gonna like it? And then you kind of hear that cackle every, you know, so he's like, starts to guffaws a few times. And then by the end, he and his wife are, you know, they're arm in arm and they're resting their head on each other's shoulder. And it was all love. But, you know, he was appreciative, but sorry, no personal anecdotes.
Well, you know, it's funny because you mentioned 20 Feet from Stardom, and there are these music docs like that, and like, you know, Searching for Sugar Man and Amy, that are a certain type of music documentary. This Summer of Soul is different than that. Do you think that maybe we're going to see more of that music festival, even though it was more than a music festival. And I guess I'd like for both of you to answer that, especially since Isadora, you're in the, the business of acquisitions and, what's in,
Yeah.
what's in vogue and what's popular. Do you see that trend happening or?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, there's so many music docs. It's definitely something that is,
It's a problem.
yeah, it's something that it's like an evergreen interest. And I think what's different about Summer of Soul, and you kind of mentioned this, Renee, is that it is really a concert film. I know that the Woodstock film that won an Oscar several decades before, it's like that, but you really don't see a lot of those kind of documentaries actually, or I have not, maybe like Gimme Shelter or something like that. But I think there is renewed interest in archival footage right now, or at least I feel like there is a deep interest in that, and I hope that informs, as in Summer of Soul, as at the end of the film, that this isn't the only concert, I'm sure, that has been lost. I hope
Right. Yeah. Doesn't that make you wonder what else out there in the basement? I mean, I recently saw this footage of Prince when he was like 8 years old or 10 years old doing an interview from a Minneapolis TV news station. And you just wonder what else is out there, what footage is out there, and what stories aren't being told.
Keeps me up at night. Really.
But it's also weird to think the opposite, like going forward from the last 5 years it's weird how the game for archival filmmaking that's looking into the past is like, oh, are we ever going to find this little golden nugget of footage? But going forward, there's going to be this insane glut of footage. Like how what is going to happen? I keep thinking of a very interesting film that I never saw, but I worked with one of the producers, John Doran, which is a Beastie Boys film that was made many years ago. Apparently it's great, but they basically used crowdsourced. It's apparently entirely made from fan shot footage of the show.
Wow.
So, I mean, you could do that now, but you'd have 10,000 sources to work for. I don't know how people are going to do it going forward, but
yeah, I think it's interesting too, because I think there's a certain amount of nostalgia that's always connected to concert films and music films. So once that hits for the iPhone generation, I think we're gonna see a huge. My job's gonna be even more.
You're definitely going to be kept up at nights.
Yeah.
I know.
Wow. Just sort of real quickly, tell folks what you're working on next. I know, Josh, you mentioned Spring Awakenings, which was on HBO, so there's some nice synergy there. But what do you both have going in the coming? I mean, what can we be looking forward to from you both?
Well, Spring Awakening just premiered about a week ago on HBO. It's an adorable film. If there's any theater geeks out there in the audience, you should definitely check it out. It's a sweet film that's sort of the making of the 2006 Broadway hit Spring Awakening, but it's also a one-night concert where they reunited the entire original cast for a beautiful concert that was put together really fast, and HBO really helped us out a huge amount. It's a beautiful film, and Jonathan Groff, who stars now, and he's on Netflix's Mindhunter, and he was in Matrix. He is just this incredible person who kind of is one of the lead interviews, and he had this relationship with Leah Michele, who's the adorable lead who was in Glee for 6 or 7 years after that. They tell this wonderful story. So that's out now. I'm currently working on a 4-part documentary series for Netflix about the Bernard Madoff scandal. So it's the first time in several years I've been reunited with the director Joe Berlinger, who's known for the Paradise Lost trilogy, which was HBO.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry we didn't get that one.
I know. So that's very interesting. A friend of mine was like, why are we talking about Bernie Madoff right now? But then again, it's sort of an evergreen subject. And
sadly, yeah.
Joe also, a lot of it's about like, what did the system do wrong to not catch him? How did this fall through the cracks for so long? And everyone's really down on capitalism right now. So this is good for that.
Cool.
Wow. Isadora, what do you have going?
Well, I mean, honestly, we're getting ready for festival season. So if, for people who don't know, the festival season is really when we start seeing the films that we'll be programming. So we have Cannes coming up, we have Tribeca, we have American Black Film Festivals coming up. There's just a lot of movies to watch. I will plug Drive My Car, which we acquired, which is my personal favorite one of my personal favorites the last year. And it's a Japanese film, and it won the Best Foreign Language Oscar this year.
Yeah,
definitely watch it on HBO.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I want to see that. Yeah.
What a great job. Let me check in with Katie, because I know we're running out of time. And Katie, were there questions, additional questions from the audience that we should be hitting?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's lots of comments about how much they appreciate you, how thrilled they are, how there's lost tapes from the Newport Jazz Festival, how tons of comments. So it's been a really engaged audience. And I think everyone's just gotten so much out of it. We're all just so appreciative. I know Melissa is, and everyone at SCH, and we're just thrilled. So thank you.
You are very welcome.
Wow.
Thank
Well,
you.
It's been wonderful to sort of see the comments that are popping up. And I guess we're heading into alum weekend. So, you've got a lot of folks coming back to, campus, and just, the sort of community. Just some final words from either one of you, both of you, on any aspect of telling or the power of what you do. Or
there's one interesting thing about editing, my experience of filmmaking, which is you make something that you think is great. Of course, you have to keep in mind the audience. The same is true with painting as well. Obviously, you're doing it to sort of please other people, but you always got to rely on your own gut instinct, and you've got to do what you think is great. And Joseph Patel, the producer of Summer of Soul, was very good at shielding me from these waves and waves of notes we were getting from all these investors, and he would just say over and over again, we've got to do what we think is cool, so you've got to kind of shut out the outside voices at a certain point.
Wow, such good advice. And Josh, Jenny McHugh just posted a note up there that this is your is it your 40th reunion?
It is.
CHA, the class of '82.
Yep.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I will not be able to be there. We're picking up our son from Ithaca College, where he's a music theater major.
Nice.
So.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did he make you say yes to the Spring Awakening?
He was home for winter break while I was working on it. He was totally into the raw footage. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isadora, any comments?
No, I just, I think that it is I think that growing up in Philadelphia, I think sometimes it can feel removed from the film industry. And I just want, you know, any younger people watching this, you know, it's possible. You know, you can be part of this industry. Like, you have so much at your disposal. You know, and I hope to see more SCH alums, you know, in at events.
That's a great way. And thank you both. This has been a wonderful, wonderful discussion. I so appreciate you both. And it just makes me so proud to be a part of this community. So thank you.
Renee. You were an amazing moderator.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you
thank
guys
you.
were very easy. Thank
And
you.
Renee's got a commencement. You're going to commencement this year, Renee.
Don't get me crying here. Yeah,
I
yeah.
would
My
also just
youngest
like-
is graduating. Yep. Yeah.
I would also like to say thank you so much, Renee and Isadora and Josh and Katie. This was absolutely wonderful. And I would like to say for any of our alumni that are on, that as Renee mentioned, we are moving into alumni weekend. So I hope to see many of you on Friday evening at the cocktail party. The weather looks great. Keeping my fingers crossed. Outside, that will be from 6 to 8. We've got campus tours, an alumni baseball game. There's still time to sign up. Tours of our permanent collection, our art exhibit. So a lot of wonderful things, an alumni play date for you all that have younger children that would like to play on the playground on Saturday morning. And then of course our dinner that evening, a memorial service, our awards on Friday. So lots of things going on, and hope that we will be able to see some of you at some of those events. And Josh, we will miss you. But I'm sure that when you are back in town, you will come this way. And Izzy, I thought I'd see you today in person, but I'm sure I will see you again. But once again, just thank you. And I wish everyone a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And
This is
Josh and
wonderful. Thank you.
Renee and Izzy, stay on because I have to take a photo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Don't hang up. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, Melissa, I'm going to let you take the photo because I can't. If I hang up, then the whole thing goes.
Right, and I'm going to take myself off and just do the three of you. Okay, hold on.
Don't take yourself off, Melissa.
Yeah, I don't want to be in that photo, and I always hit the wrong button for the video settings, which is actually kind of funny. But hold on, here we go. Okay. Oh wait, no, you shouldn't see me
No.
though. Oh wait a minute.
I
Okay.
told you we went on.
See what I mean? Hide none. Okay, I'm out. I should be but Katie is gone. All right, let me try this again.
Turn off video, turn on video.
I know, I just turned it off though.
Well, I took a bunch of screenshots, but do you want to just
Okay.
take one with you in it?
No, I don't want to. Why? I don't know why I can't see off the screen though.
Oh, you can do hide self-view. It's the three little dots in the upper right corner of your own picture.
What did you just say, Josh?
Hide self-view. When you hover the mouse over the upper right corner of your box, there should be three little dots that appear.
Yep. Yeah.
And if you mouse down on that, there's show self-view or hide self-view. No?
No, it's not there. Okay, well, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a photo, and
All right.
I'll just have to be in this one.
You can Photoshop.
Everyone smile. Okay, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Great, one more.
All right.
Do you hear our dog in the background? His fans
I
going
do
crazy.
hear.
Thank you.
He held off for an hour.
1,
I'm
2,
trying not to
3.
react for this.
Okay. I don't know
And
why.
Isadora's cat did not make an appearance.
I know.
I know your cat didn't make an
scared her
appearance.
off.
All right, well,
Yeah.
Okay,
thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Have a great night.
This was so much
It
fun.
was so much
Thanks
fun.
so much
Yeah,
fun.
that was
Bye.
fun. Thanks for
Take
inviting
care.
me. That was
Thank you,
great.
guys.
Thank
Thank
you
Thank
all.
you.
Bye.
Be safe. Bye.